just realized that I love diving really deep into one type of training, seeing what I can do, if it's competitive or not. It doesn't matter to me. It just matters to see for me as a self-experiment how much I can improve as long as I have fun in this field. Focus on one thing in one training cycle, get really freaking good at it, and then you focus on another thing in another training cycle. This is how you improve. Progress is unavoidable if you are consistent. Hey guys, and welcome back to the Art of Health podcast. I'm your host, Marie Steffen, and today we will talk about how to combine running and strength. And if you're new here, I just want to say welcome first of all. I'm happy that you're here and listening. And I also want to recommend listening to my previous episode where you get some more insights about how I started running and my whole fitness career, because then you know what kind of background I have and what perspective I am speaking from. Because I have gotten into many different kinds of training. Now, to give you just an overview, I started with hip-hop dancing, went then into bodybuilding, had a professional career in bodybuilding, which I never thought. I thought it would be just one competition and that's it. And it turned out to be a 4-year adventure with competing at the European Championships and getting a silver medal there and gold medal, that would be cool, but I got bronze medal at the Worlds, which was more than I ever thought I would achieve. And after that, I wanted to explore different kinds of movements like handstands and muscle ups, got into gymnastics, and now I'm into running and I'm exploring my whole potential in this field. I just realized that I love diving really deep into one type of training, seeing what I can do, if it's competitive or not. It doesn't matter to me. It just matters to see for me as a self-experiment how much I can improve as long as I have fun in this field. And that's still the case. I still love running. I started 1 year ago getting serious about it and hiring a coach for my running competitions and events that I wanted to do. And now I just finished my first trail race, which was 31 kilometers in my hometown where I grew up. Went really well. I was super happy with it. And I wanted to see if I still want to continue with running or if that's kind of the goal. And then maybe I will go back to my other types of sports, we'll go back to more strength again and handstands and gymnastics, or if I still want to explore more in running. And finally, in the past, and it happens to be always the case when I say that, when I say I would never do something, I do it. It's so funny. I thought in the past I would never be a bodybuilder and compete at a bodybuilding competition. I thought that these are people that take drugs. This is too crazy. I don't want to look like a man. And all of a sudden, when I get into something, I realize, okay, it's actually not the case. My stereotypical beliefs I had about a certain sport are not necessarily true, or I can get away with it, or I'm actually interested in that, or whatever it is. So whenever I say never, it happens. So I am a little bit afraid of me saying that because I think I said never to many things. I said also I would never want to do a marathon. This is too much. This is not healthy. And here I am. And I think I am even considering an ultra marathon one day maybe. So now let's first do the marathon, and this is my current goal. So I wanted to let you know about that. That's my specific goal. That means my focus is on running right now. But with having these focuses now and in the past, running, before that, I was in my handstand era and muscle up and gymnastics. Before that, it was bodybuilding. Before that, it was dancing. There are always certain types of movements that are a staple of mine, that should be a staple of everybody's training, no matter what you're doing, even if you are a swimmer or whatever it is. And that is functional strength and mobility. It's something that everybody needs, no matter if you train or not, and no matter what type of training you're involved into. No matter what focus you have, it should be a staple of your routine to get the most out of your specific goal and to be the healthiest long term. So that's what I try to still incorporate based on my positive experiences doing consistent mobility and functional strength. And now I'm just exploring how I can incorporate this into my running routine, which is the majority of my training routine. And we always want to be careful with overdoing things, recovering well enough. And this is what I wanted to talk about, because I think many people are at the place that I am, where we think, okay, how can I make everything fit? How can I recover well? How can I have so fun doing everything together? How is it's the best to structure everything? What exercises should I do? And again, this is specific for me as a person who focuses on running and wants to build in the strength components and mobility, of course, which for me encompasses one whole area. So strength and mobility is understood that we always do that together. So I want to differentiate between three main goals for combining running and strength. The first one is you have a serious running goal. You want to attempt your first half marathon or marathon like I do, or you just like focusing on running and want to build in strength. Category number one. Category number two is you just strive to be a holistic athlete. You want to train in diverse ways. Maybe you were a gym rat in the past or so far, and you just know push-pull legs, and this is your training split since many years, upper, lower body, whatever, kind of more bodybuilding style. And now you realize it might be good to actually do some cardiovascular work or to add some running and see how you like it and how you can make everything fit to just train holistically, which I think is a very good goal for everybody who feels a little bit lost, just striving to train holistically, because you will never go wrong with that. And once you have a specific goal, you have a good foundation to go from there. And the third category I want to talk about today is if you are a CrossFitter or Hyrox athlete or want to do a CrossFit or Hyrox competition. This is more what I would consider a hybrid athlete, but I think all of these three categories that I was talking about are types of hybrid training. Yeah. So this term is now everywhere. It's kind of like a buzzword at the moment. I'm a hybrid athlete. I do strength. I do running. I think everybody is kind of hybrid, because hardly anybody is doing only one thing. And it's just about to find your perfect version of being hybrid. If you like to combine strength and running or strength and cycling, it's all for me hybrid. So I like to use it for all types of training, and you can just make your unique version of it. You don't need to fit into a specific type of hybrid training. Anyways, I digress. The third category I want to talk about is more directed towards those of you who maybe train more CrossFit style based and Hyrox style based, and how you can fit running into these specific types of training. And before we dive into that, I want to get some misbeliefs out of the way. If you were mainly working out at the gym in the past, then you might think that running will ruin your gains. But the truth is that running can even improve your muscular physique, your strength, if you're training smart and if you're fueling those extra running sessions. So what's not true is that running in moderate amounts plus strength training will ruin your gains. What is true though, that under fueling will ruin your gains. So if you don't eat enough, your body will take your literal muscle tissue and use it as fuel to gain energy from it. That's actually possible. So if you don't put fuel in, your body will take the tissue and the substances that are on your body, not only fat, but also muscle tissue, to produce energy and use it as fuel. But what's kind of cool to see is what I was just talking about previously, that we now find ways to combine different types of training. And when you look at those athletes, when you look at the extreme side of them, for example, CrossFit or Hyrox athlete or other type of hybrid versions, they look freaking jacked and they perform well. I mean, there are really, really good and muscular marathon runners. And the reason why these misbeliefs have developed are because you see an athlete that maybe is super skinny and has no muscle, and then you just make a logical conclusion of it. Okay, this athlete just won this competition, so this is the best way you should look to perform your best. But in reality, with every body type, you can perform your best if you fuel well and if you train smart. And I believe that it's never good for no athlete to only do one specific type of training. I think it's always good for everybody to work with a diversified plan, because only then you will avoid injury and overuse of your joints and ligaments. And that leads us to the next part, where I want to talk real quick about the benefits for runners to add in strength, and the other way around, the benefits for strength athletes to add running. So how both styles can benefit from each other instead of harming each other, what some people still think is the case. So the benefits of strength for runners are, for example, better coordination and therefore better running technique and efficiency. Injury prevention. I'm not saying that strength training is automatically or ultimately avoiding injury, but it definitely will help reducing the risk of injury. We strengthen not only our muscles, but also our ligaments and joints and all the little stabilizing muscles that we need for many, many reps that we're doing in running. And another cool thing is that we can use strength training as a screening tool. When I have a client and she is doing a squat, for example, I see her weaknesses in different areas. I see if her ankles collapse, if her hip is shifting towards one side, if her core is weak and she can't, for example, keep an upright posture while going into a squat. And all these things are a quick assessment of her weak points that we can specifically work on before an injury develops after doing millions of reps that you would do in running, because usually your weaknesses come out after doing something pretty extreme and more frequent. But strength training can show these weaknesses earlier on by doing different movements and looking over them and finding out maybe some imbalances. You will definitely enhance your performance with strength training, because the strength you will develop from doing certain exercises, a mixture of strength-based and maybe some explosive exercises, also contribute to your explosiveness in your running form, but also for hills if you want to do trail runs, for example. So I just told you earlier, I did this trail race and I did significantly less strength training. I always kept my strength in, but the muscles that I already had from doing bodybuilding for such a long time and other types of sports, they helped me a lot doing this race with no problem, without even practicing hill runs, because I'm living in Hamburg and there are no hills here. So I couldn't even practice it. But that's why strength training is so important, because if I would have done this without any type of strength foundation, then I would have been probably very long sore, even have risk an injury, because my joints and my ankles wouldn't be prepared for these steep hills. So that's, I think, why I was recovering pretty well from it and why the hills were not as hard as I thought. Or, I mean, they were crazy hard, but I don't want to even know how hard it would have been if I wouldn't have a certain amount of muscular strength. What strength training also leads to is a higher bone density, because when you add resistance to your body and do certain movements, your bone density increases, which helps us to reduce the risk again of stress fractures, for example. And we can also improve in our long runs from our strength sessions because we are less prone to compensate our running form the longer we run. Usually once you're at the point where you fatigue muscularly, then we compensate in different ways. Maybe our knee, our joints, our ankles are collapsing, and that would lead to less efficient running form at the end of our runs, and little by little adds up to potential injuries. And strength training for runners can also have a mental training effect because runners know how to break through endurance-based challenges basically, and how to push through them if you really feel like you can't breathe anymore, but you still keep going. But you don't exactly know how it is, unless you do regular strength training, how to push through a hard set of squats or lunges and embrace the burn. So when you add in both worlds, you will notice the benefits for your specific goal as well. So the mental toughness you will gain from strength training will also contribute to your mental toughness in your running events or workouts. But now let's see how running can actually be beneficial for mainly strength athletes. Obviously, you will improve your cardiovascular health. The endurance you will gain from those running sessions will also improve the endurance in your strength sessions. And you can use running also as a recovery tool. There are many ways how you can do or approach an active rest day. It can be only mobility, it can be biking, it can be some type of light movement to increase blood flow. But a really easy way to do that is going for a light jog, being in nature a little bit, 20 to 30 minute, really zone 2 run, which can speed up the recovery process. And we just talked about the mental toughness you gain from strength training for runners, and the same is applicable the other way around. If you are mainly a strength athlete and you push through some hard endurance-based workouts, this can help with your strength workouts in general or your mental toughness to push through something that's really hard. Either it's endurance-based, strength-based, or both. You will gain respiratory efficiency. I had to look on my notes because I can't say this word, respiratory. I hope it's right, because it will enhance better oxygen utilization. That just means that your muscles can utilize oxygen in a better and more efficient way. All right, now let's talk about the first category. I told you we will speak about 3 categories, how you can structure running and strength around your main purpose. And the first one that we want to look at is the purpose of doing a half marathon, maybe approaching a marathon like I want to do next, or if your main schedule is based on running. So how can you add in strength training the best to support your running goals? This is the first thing we talk about. And what we need to understand first is the purpose of your strength workouts for your running. The purpose are to stabilize your joints. We talked about that, how it's beneficial, core stability, improving running efficiency and form, and it shouldn't affect or harm your running workouts. So it shouldn't affect your running workouts in a negative way, meaning you don't want to plan it in a way where you're then sore on your running days, because those days still have the main priority for you. The approach that I recommend here is doing 2 to 3 strength sessions per week for 15 to 30 minutes, something in that nature. Okay, so it obviously depends tremendously on your schedule, on your ability to recover, and on the actual amount of running workouts you have and how many intense runs you have. To give you an example, and this is a very, I believe, traditional way how runners prep, you have like 2 to 3 easy runs and 2 more intense runs. And this is why it makes most sense to add those strength sessions on your intense running days. Otherwise, you will never have a rest day. So we want to keep those intense days intense to then really recover on those other days. If I have an intense running day and then do my strength after, I will never really have the ability to recover. So this is what I recommend runners do to add, if possible, your strength sessions on your tempo runs So do it after your tempo runs, for example, and after your long runs. These are usually the more intense days, and the rest of the days are shorter, easy runs or middle distance easy runs. To give you an example of my current marathon prep situation and schedule, I do an easy run plus mobility on Mondays. Then usually on Tuesdays, I have my tempo run with a 20 to 30 minute strength sessions with weights, which is usually the short part of my hybrid body program, which I link below in the description, or a strength for runners workout that I record for YouTube, which you can follow along. On Wednesdays, I have another easy run plus mobility. On Thursdays, I rest. Fridays, Pilates if I record a YouTube workouts, or I do another strength for runners workout with weights. And on Saturdays, I do usually my easy run plus mobility that I recover well for Sunday for my long run. And if I feel good, then I still add some core or strength exercises on the Sunday, but it's usually more like a 15 to 20 minute workout, circuit style, 4 to 5 exercises to rotate through. And then I got the most important exercises in on that day. Now, keep in mind that this is a very specific schedule for me and for maybe someone that is prepping for a race, for a running race. And this will look different when I'm out of my prep. For example, in the past weeks, I had more recovery weeks. I had 3 to 4 sessions of running, and only one of them was really hard, a tempo session, and the rest was much shorter than before when I was in my race prep, and also much easier in intensity wise. And then I had more time to add more strength in. So I used that time to add a little more strength to build a better foundation. And during my race prep, my goal is more to maintain my muscle and to work on weak parts and stability exercises that help me to improve my running form and prevent injury. And this is the next point I want to talk about. What type of exercises, what type of training should you do as a runner? So I recommend you doing stability exercises, single leg work, Bulgarian split squats, types of lunges, or single leg deadlifts, which I love, and lots of variations of deadlifts, lunges, squats, and lower body movements, which you will see in my Strength for Runners workouts on YouTube if you want to get an idea, if you want to do them with me, or just use them as an inspiration. And what I also recommend you doing, lots of core movements. So plank variations, but also leg raises variations or bicycle variations. I guess you know what I mean by bicycle. You pull one leg to your chest, which will train your hip flexors, but also your core. So everything that's hip flexor and core base is super important because we lift our knees all the time and we need to engage our core and keep our core under tension for a longer time. That's why I like isometric exercises. And we also want to add in rotation because while running, we rotate a little bit. We want to avoid rotation as best as we can because it uses a lot of energy. And if we are not strong in our core, we work not really efficient in our running form and waste energy essentially. So what I like to do is doing Russian twist. You will see always in my hybrid body workouts or in my YouTube workouts. Side plank variations are great. What we also need tons is glute medius work. So the glute medius is the side glute muscle. It's different than the glute maximus because the glute medius is responsible for abduction. That means for lifting your leg sideways, basically. And this has the function to stabilize your knees. Your knees will stabilize your ankles. So if you have weak glute medius, then you will most likely have back issues, knee issues, ankle issues. So this is a very important foundation. And if there's one thing you can take away from this podcast, just do glute medius work. If you can't do anything else, do clamshells with a band or just any type of abduction that would train the glute med. But I have a specific workout for that coming up as well, a routine that I like to add after any type of running workout because it's low impact. It's something that you can easily do before but also after your runs, and that would target specifically the glute medius but also a little bit of core work. It's a 20-minute routine. I will link this video below and all my other Strength for Runners workouts so you can access them easily and you don't need to search for them. With that being said, doing rotational work, stability work, and all of that, this is what you should definitely do. Can you add compound movements, working with a barbell, for example, even, and doing deadlifts and back squats and all of that? Sure, go for it if you love it. But keep in mind that we as runners or being in a prep have only so much time to accomplish certain workouts and only so much energy and capacity to recover. If you're already overwhelmed or do a lot of things, then first focus on the exercises that we definitely need as runners, that we will benefit from in our runs and races to improve our speed and running efficiency. And if you then realize, cool, with all these exercises, I would still have time to add maybe one main lift, like a back squat or a deadlift, then go for it, and you can definitely do that as well. Next, we want to talk about the category number 2, if you are approaching a holistic way of training. Maybe you are at the gym since a long time and you want to add in running into your gym routine or strength training routine and you don't know how. So let's assume you are doing minimum 3 strength training sessions a week and you want to add in running. In that case, the purpose of adding the runs is probably just getting fitter, improving endurance, maybe even speed, training more holistically while maintaining or gaining strength. So you see how this differs a little bit from our first approach, where we would only focus on running and specifically do our strength workouts to improve running. In our second approach now, the purpose is to kind of improve both and including the runs while maintaining or improving strength. So what frequency of running workouts would be suitable for your gym routine? I wouldn't add more than 2 runs a week. So for example, 1 more tempo-based run and 1 easy run, and 3 strength training workouts. Even if you were doing more strength in the past, I recommend you at least considering decreasing your strength workouts when you want to add something new in to see how you recover. And once you build a routine, you can still add on more strength workouts again if you feel like this is too little and build on that. But let's start with this schedule. This is something I recommend anybody who wants to train hybrid or diverse, and it's also the amount of frequency of strength and running workouts I provide in my Hybrid Body program. So let me give you 2 examples of how you could split these training sessions. You could do an upper body session on Monday, Tuesday lower, Wednesday rest, then a tempo run, rest day, full body session, and on Sunday a long run. This is the exact hybrid body schedule that we're following there, and sometimes I switch to a full body split so that we can rotate through those splits because both have a benefit. But if you say, hey Marie, I think I want to keep my 4 running sessions, I'm gym rat, I don't want to compromise on that, but I want to still add running, think that's possible if you are an advanced lifter. And a schedule could look like this, where you do a split of upper body on Monday, lower body on Tuesday, rest day, then a tempo run, then upper body, lower body, long run. That means you would have only 1 rest day, but that's absolutely fine if you plan those sessions smart. So I don't need to tell you if you're in this category what type of strength you're doing, but usually those people that I'm talking about who want to train holistically, they do compound lifts, but also isolation exercises, some functional bodybuilding work, and mobility is understood. As I said, we always want to combine mobility within our strength and also our running workouts, at least in the warm-ups and in the cool-downs. So if you search for a program like that, Hybrid Body would be perfect for you, but you can, of course, also follow your own strength plan and just add in 2 running sessions, start slow by really just maybe with a 20-minute run and another 20-minute run on the other day, depending where you're at and how experienced you are. But this is key for starting with running, and I actually don't want to get into it too much because this is what I was talking about in my previous episode, how you can start running and avoid mistakes so you avoid injury, shin splints, and getting demotivated if you don't experience the progress that we want to experience. I hope that gave you a little bit of an idea how you can structure your workouts if you want to accomplish both, build muscle, get stronger, but also improve your endurance and explore a little bit on that side as well. And the last category I want to talk about is how you can combine running and strength if you are more like a CrossFit or Hyrox athlete. And I want to be very honest with you, I am not a specialist in these categories. I never did a Hyrox competition and I never did a CrossFit competition. I worked with athletes in that field, but this requires very specific programming, knowing your weak sides, because you need to be good at so many things that you need to be careful with over programming for your workouts. But I still wanted to add that into our podcast because I know many listeners want to approach a Hyrox competition one day or a CrossFit competition or want to just get better in these fields. And I think it just fits into our talk today, how to combine different types of sports while improving in all areas and make the most out of it. And I wanted to just show you the differences in each category, because if I would just talk about my situation, you see how specific that is for me. And my goal is right now not to add more muscle mass, not to add more strength. My goal is to improve in running, to have fun in running, to do my marathon, to stay healthy and not getting injured while still maintaining the muscle mass that I have. And for somebody else, it might be the goal to really maintain or even maximize strength and specific movements that are required in a CrossFit competition or in a Hyrox competition, which is very, very specific. So I wanted to give you some examples with keeping in mind that you really should hire a coach if this is your goal. But to give you an example how a week of a Hyrox athlete, for example, could be structured, let's say on Monday you do a strength component with Hyrox specific training, maybe a little workout that includes all these exercises that you need, burpees, wall balls, broad jumps, and these types of movements. And then on Tuesday, you do a long run to specifically work on your endurance. And on Wednesday, a functional training session with intervals could be on your menu to improve your speed. On Thursday, an active rest day. Friday, Hyrox specific training with some type of sprints. Saturday, HIIT or a tempo run. And on Sunday, you would recover. This is just an example, and the same applies to CrossFit, where you can really have so many ways to train. And then we can also differentiate between a CrossFit enthusiast and wants to get into it, or a pro athlete. And the pro athlete, we don't even need to talk about them because they train 3 times a day. But just as an idea, for CrossFit, you would do specific CrossFit work, be on Mondays with some interval runs. On Tuesday, you do a long run. On Wednesday, strength and some sprints. And on Thursday, an active rest day. Friday, a CrossFit workout with some middle distance repeats. So for example, 800-meter runs at a certain pace. And on Saturday, you could do interval training and CrossFit skill training, because you need still improve in all those skills. And it's a constant struggle in CrossFit because you need to be good at so many things. And then on Sunday could be your rest day. Again, this is just an idea, and you obviously need to see what works best for you and what is your specific goal? How serious are you about that goal? But I highly recommend you hiring a coach. It makes your life so much easier. You will learn so much faster, and then you can still use all of those tools to maybe one day do it on your own. But this is what I used to do in the past. I hired a handstand coach, a running coach, I had a bodybuilding coach, I had coaches in any types of areas in my life, because I believe we all learn much faster from experts that already went through all the struggles. But I still hope that I can provide you some information to start somewhere. And obviously, I'm not a CrossFit coach, I'm not a Hyrox coach. This is just an idea of a schedule. But since my husband is working in that field, I got introduced to many CrossFit and Hyrox athletes, and their main struggle is not focusing on one thing. And the belief of, if they reduce one part, for example, reduce a little bit of strength training to improve their endurance, or the other way around, or not practicing this one skill anymore for one training cycle, that they would lose that ability or skill. And that's not true. You will only gain from it. So for example, I'm not a CrossFit competitor, but I was training similarly because I was aiming for my muscle up, and then I wanted to learn a handstand, and I want to do running. I can't do everything at once. I would never improve in running if I still want to maintain the same amount of handstand training and muscle up training that I used to do. So what I do right now is just focusing on what I want right now, maybe having one fun day where I do some handstand playing and a muscle up or so. But this is just for fun. This is not to improve. This is just to maintain and to show myself that I can still do and perform the skill. I can still do it, even though I'm not practicing for it, because I had a phase in my life where I practiced it with the right technique, the right coaches, that now it's in my skill set. But I won't lose it if I focus for a few months on another goal. So maybe that helps you to let go of that fear of losing a skill. Even bodybuilders have it. I know that when I have new clients and they think they need to do all exercises all the time to have a nice shaped glute, for example. And that's not the case. You don't need to do every exercise in one session all the time. That's good for your glutes. That's impossible. You just drive yourself crazy. I used to think that too. I mean, I was in bodybuilding. I thought, I need to do this and clamshells and glute kickbacks and leg press wide, leg press narrow, poses, heavy, many reps, low reps. It's impossible. Focus on one thing in one training cycle, get really freaking good at it, and then you focus on another thing in another training cycle. This is how you improve. And trust me, you will maintain your skills, your strength, your endurance. And even if you, for example, now, let's say you worked on a ring muscle up. You got it. Now you want to improve another skill and you realize you can't fit it all in. So you let go a little bit of the muscle up. You do it again after 3 months of doing something different. And then you realize it doesn't feel so easy anymore. Of course, you need to go back into the movement and get your body introduced to the strength again. Let it be reminded of what it feels like. Do it a couple of times, but it comes back much faster because we actually have something like a muscle memory effect, which is super cool. If you were skiing when you were a child and then you didn't do it for 10 years and your husband says, now let's go on a winter ski trip, you will learn much quicker as if you wouldn't have done it when you were a child. While talking about it, I just remembered that I just had a talk about this topic with my dear friend Fabian Hambüchen, who is a gold medalist German gymnastics athlete. You probably know him if you're German. And we had dinner together, and then I was curious about his training routine and how he approached his training right before his competition, or in general practicing his routine for his final competition, because they have to go through all these routines that they then present at the gymnastics competition. And he said he went through it. His dad was his trainer, and his dad always made him stop doing the routine once he did a mistake. So instead of doing the whole routine over and over again and wasting time and energy, he focused only on the weak points for a certain time. And even a few days before the competition, he wouldn't do the whole routine over and over again. He just focused on one approach did the routine, no matter how it went, this was it. And he knows on competition day he will crush it and he will do his best. But it won't make him better to fatigue in doing something over and over again. I thought this is a nice reminder for us, even if you're not high-level gymnasts, high-level athletes. Just do something, realize where your weak points are, focus on them, and then add them into your normal routine, or add the things you're already good at back into your routine. But don't focus at everything at the same time. You will waste energy unnecessarily. But now I want to get into some frequently asked questions of you guys that I collected on Instagram. And one of the most asked questions was, can I run immediately after a strength session? Yes, you can. But again, remind yourself of the main purpose of this running session. Is it to improve your endurance? Is it to lose body fat? Is it to, what is the purpose? And what's your main purpose overall? To improve strength or running? Because then I would always do the main focus at the beginning. Do your running session first if running is more important, or do your strength first if strength is more important. It's not a one-fits-all recommendation. You can also switch it up. Say, okay, I don't have much time. I have 2 days to train and I want to do 2 running and 2 strength sessions and I want to improve in both. Then you could also say, okay, great. Let's do 1 day strength and then after a shorter running session, maybe an easy run. And on the other day, you run first, do maybe an interval or a longer running session, something that's more intense, and then a lighter strength session. But this is one idea. You need to understand that you have to decide those things on your main purpose. In general, yes, you can run after your strength session. I wouldn't necessarily do it after a heavy leg day. It won't feel good. Maybe after an upper body day or even a full body session. But if it's about performance, then I recommend you eating at least half of a banana or drinking a small shake. Nothing that's too heavy on your stomach because you want to do this running session after it. But midst or towards the end of your strength session, you could already eat something little, maybe 2 dates or something that gives you energy to make the most out of this running session after and to actually gain something from it and not just being exhausted and completely empty after this session. Also have something ready to eat after, or a protein shake, something little, because otherwise you just waste your energy. If you don't fuel those really long and intense sessions with strength and running, then it's not the best approach, or you might risk fatiguing and delayed recovery and all of that stuff. The second question that I got is, I don't want to lose weight, but just want to get more defined through running and strength. How shall I go about it? So strength training is a good idea to get visible muscle, but what ultimately leads to more muscle definition is having a lower body fat percentage. In order to get to a lower body fat percentage, fastest is usually by losing weight, body fat optimally. You can do a recomposition, which means that you keep your body weight and just increase your muscle mass and decrease your body fat. But this is only possible in specific scenarios. When you are a beginner in training, because you still have so much room to build muscle mass pretty quickly in your honeymoon phase, how I like to call it, and then still lose a little bit of body fat and maybe you weigh the same because muscle are heavier than body fat. Or if you haven't been training for a while but used to train, and for example, my clients that were pregnant and then when they start again after pregnancy, they look jacked very fast. And this is the muscle memory effect that I was talking earlier about, which you benefit from a little bit. But in general, if you want to get really visible muscle, you need to lose a little bit of body fat, which is only possible through a caloric deficit. And you can create a caloric deficit through many different ways. I like to do it through controlling food intake because this is more predictable, more controllable, more straightforward than activity output. If you create a caloric deficit by adding more activity, you don't really know how much extra you have burned. Whereas when you monitor your caloric intake, we know pretty much where your maintenance is once you calculate it, or if I have a client, I can pretty specifically figure that out. And then I just go into a deficit of 15 to 20%, and she eats just a little bit less while still eating healthy and not doing anything crazy restrictive and all of that stuff. Want to keep that in mind, and keeping the training routine. Or we might go into just a little deficit in terms of calories, because we might added some activity into her routine, which also contributes to a larger deficit, and we keep that in mind. But only working with activity as a deficit is not recommended from my side. I think it's not very predictable, and trying to just add in running and hoping to lose weight can confuse you, because you might get hungrier, you eat more at the same time, and you ask yourself, why am I not getting more defined? And I think more straightforward is also controlling food intake. And then the next most important component of visible muscle is your strength training. And if you want to add running because it's fun for you, it's another activity you want to do, or you're not so active in your daily life, and running would just be one of the aerobic parts in your schedule, which is also healthy for you, great. But don't think that strength will build muscle, running will make you lose fat, and you maintain your weight at the same time. Might be that you don't need to lose a tremendous amount of weight, but maybe a little bit to see that muscle definition. And when you then realize I want more muscle, then you can still go into a next building phase where you focus on eating a little bit more in a surplus, focusing on building muscle, and then maybe adding another fat loss phase when you make those muscle visible. This is the faster way of building muscle mass and losing body fat and making those muscles visible until you're at a point where you can maintain that. And the last question for today is how not to lose muscle mass or build some while including running. I want to refer to my last episode here because I was actually talking about that in that episode as well. But what you essentially need to keep in mind that your muscles need protein because they're made of protein. So eating enough protein, minimum 1.6 gram per kilogram body weight, anywhere to 2.2, maybe 2.4 grams per kilogram body weight, which depends on your height, on your current muscle mass, on your age, if you're in a deficit or not. These are all components that play into your optimal protein intake. And if you need specific recommendations, you can use the Art of Health app. And the second component we need to maintain and build muscle is to set the right stimulus, adding resistance training and adding volume week by week, month by month, so your muscle have a reason to adapt and develop not only in strength but also quantity. And I think what many hybrid athletes are not good at is understanding how much food they need. So if you really want to build this muscular physique while running and improving in running, you need to eat really good. It means you need to eat a lot, of course, to fuel those sessions, but you need to eat the right amount of protein, the right amount of carbs, the right amount of fats, and the timing should be considered as well. You don't need to be crazy like some bodybuilders are, like you running after you work out into the locker room and have to drink a shake immediately after your session. But eat something rich in protein and carbs 60 to 90 minutes latest before and after your strength training or running sessions. So that's something you definitely should keep in mind. And then the rest is also dependent on other lifestyle factors. How much do you sleep? How much stress you have in life? How good do you recover? These are all things that play a role in your ability to develop extra muscle tissue. And all in all, I want to let you know, guys, progress is unavoidable if you are consistent. And this is a quote. It's not by me. It's by someone that I follow on YouTube. And I thought this is applicable for all of us because usually it's not so much about what we should do specifically. It's how can we do what we do in a consistent way? And some final words, guys. I want to say that there is no right or wrong. These are just some ideas that I hope were helpful for you. And if you see somebody on Instagram or any other platform or me, don't do just the same shit as they do, because you are not them and you are most likely at a completely different stage of your life, have a completely different training background than them, and you might harm yourself more trying to just mimic what you see on the internet than having a coach or investigating on your own what works good for you, what feels good, and trust that. Trust your body. When you notice something is not feeling good or feeling too much, don't do it. You don't want to risk injury because somebody is all of a sudden a hybrid athlete and trains 2 times a day. You don't need to do that to improve. You might, in fact, need to do less to improve. This is the difficulty to figure out on your own, especially if you are very ambitious and are very motivated. But usually motivation is not the key as well. But again, consistency, staying with something for a longer period of time, and then really noticing the benefits of doing your strength, your mobility, adding some running workout. Consistency is therefore much more valuable than trying to figure out the perfect way, the perfect timing, the perfect amount. So I hope that was helpful to you. And I would be actually curious what your goals are. So let me know in the poll that you can now create. I realized on Spotify, if you are listening on Spotify, I think when you click on that episode, you will see the poll and can just click on category 1, 2, or 3. What is your current goal? Is it 1, training for a marathon or half marathon or something running related? Is it 2, just wanting to be a holistic athlete, combining different styles of training, running, strength, maybe something different, additionally like handstands or something like that? I know there are many people out there that want to learn a handstand and muscle up. And then 3 is if you are a CrossFit athlete or Hyrox athlete, or by athlete I don't mean you need to be a professional athlete, just if you are training for these sports. I would be curious to get to know you better, know what you guys are striving for and what your goals are, so that I can make more podcast episodes that fit your needs, your goals, and that we can talk about our favorite topics to get better athletes and just explore our full potential. Oh, and I want to ask you if you would appreciate the What Would Marie Do episodes again. I was thinking to add always a What Would Marie Do episode at the end of a certain topic. If you don't know what I'm talking about, those episodes are meant to be almost like a private consultation. So you can just send me your current question, fitness related questions, where you feel stuck at in your fitness journey, to lose weight, to build muscle, to get good at something, to implement your routine into your daily life. Whatever it is, something in that field, you can send me an email at may@mariesteffen.com with the subject, What Would Marie Do? Send me an email with some insights about your current situation, what your question is, and I would address it in the next podcast episode. Or send me a voice note, and I will put the link down below as well. I think a voice note is much easier, but keep in mind you need to send me the voice note in English so I can play it for everybody. But I won't mention any names if you don't want to. And I think it's just a nice thing to do for us as a community to get through the questions that are on your heart, and maybe you will help somebody else with it, because I'm sure that you're not the only one that has this question. Usually we are all very similar and go through similar struggles. So let me know if you want to keep the What Would Marie Do format, if we want to do it at the end of each episode, and also put in the chat or in the poll on Spotify what you are currently training for. I would be super curious to know that. And with that being said, I give you a big hug from Hamburg, and I see you in the next episode.